welcome to Tales from the Borderlands panel. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm Kamal Nanjiani. This is Emily Gordon. We host a gaming podcast called the Indoor Kids for the Nerdist Network. Do you guys want to go down the line and introduce yourself? We have awesome people from Telltale as well as Gearbox here.
I'm Anthony Birch, and I was the lead writer of Borderlands 2.
I'm Matthew Armstrong. I'm the franchise director of Borderlands.
I'm Kevin Bruner, the co-founder and president of Telltale Games.
I'm Harrison Pink. I'm the lead designer on Tales from the Borderlands.
Well, thank you guys for coming. So I think first, everyone, when I first heard this, I was really excited. But, Telltale and Gearbox working together, seems like sort of a crazy thing. Like, how did this happen?
Evidently, nobody knows. So our biz dev guy, Dave Eddings, is friends with your biz dev guy, and they basically kind of just got plastered one night and thought it would be interesting to do.
Yeah, my version of it is at last year's VGAs afterwards, we went out and, one thing led to another, and then 9 months later, this came out.
Right.
So you got pregnant with a game.
Yeah, we have a game baby.
I don't really recall.
That's what most guys say.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
What is
so
it?
dark so quickly?
What is it about each other's games that made you guys want to work together?
Oh, man. Oh, it's on me. The Borderlands, I've played all the Borderlands games. I'm a huge Borderlands fan, and I love the world, and I love the stories that go on there. And the gameplay, and just it's the experience of playing with your friends and just being in this crazy world where all these crazy things are happening. I think it's just fantastic, and there's just so much rich world building and interesting characters going on in that world that it just made perfect sense to be working on this license.
For us, it was obviously Telltale is one of the best studios ever in terms of just doing story. Like anybody who played The Walking Dead and didn't cry is a robot, obviously. Yeah, Walking Dead. And more than that, the idea of a Borderlands game that wasn't, a first-person shooter RPG, just capital B Borderlands game was really interesting to Matt and I, especially because, you grow up loving Star Wars as a kid, and one of the best things about Star Wars isn't the movies, it's getting the Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina short story collection, where you can go through the scene in the cantina, and every one of those guys has their own short story, and you're like, oh, this world feels so big now.
I thought I was the only one who read that.
No, I love those. That was my favorite. That remains one of my favorite Star Wars things,
Awesome.
just period, in the universe. And having the ability to say that, yeah, Borderlands can be more than just shooting people in the face repeatedly. It can be shooting people in the face repeatedly and then talking to them. It was kind of a cool possibility for us.
And I think that is true, that what both games have in common is a really good world building that you feel like that's really, really been thought out and really, really detailed. But, Borderlands is known for being very, very funny and having a lot of in-jokes, whereas Walking Dead is more known for being very sad and upsetting, sad and upsetting, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad and upsetting, and Borderlands, is more shooting and fun. So how do you think those two sort of tones work together?
Well, I think one of the things, a lot of people know us for Walking Dead, but before Walking Dead, we were mostly a comedy studio, working on Sam & Max and Strong Bad and things like that. So actually, we've got all this pent-up comedy in boxes around the studio that we've been dying to unpack.
And we have a lot of pent-up tragedy. You see, if you play our games, you'll notice that even our funniest characters, in fact, our very funniest characters, tend to have the most tragic and horrible backstories. We really just want all of our characters to be miserable and funny at the same time. So we have a very dark universe.
Yeah, you guys really do, because the newest Borderlands 2 had a pretty major character. Has everybody played Borderlands 2? I'm gonna can I do a big spoiler? No? All right. Well, people.
His name rhymes with Boland.
Yep. So there is a lot of darkness. So Tiny Tina's a very dark, funny character.
Yeah, she has a significantly. Boy,
Sorry.
I'm a little taller than him, but he's really good looking. Look at him.
You shouldn't laugh.
No, I wasn't laughing at. I was laughing at his reaction on his beautiful face.
Yeah, many of our characters, Pandora's a nasty planet, and most of our characters have some tragedy or darkness in their stories. And Tina has one of the most tragic and darkest stories, but that's one of the ways that we're able to really keep the humor strong and vibrant. It's got a really nice contrast to it. It lets you care about somebody, but still lets them go extreme and wacky.
And I will say, Tiny Tina is voiced by Anthony's sister, Ashley, and she is amazing. And she did an amazing job with that. And I don't know if you can talk about it, but the tone of this Tales from the Borderlands game, is it going to be kind of gallows humor? Is it going to be funnier? Is it going to be tragic?
I mean, it's the Borderlands humor. You know, it's definitely that sort of dark comedy, that comedy with an edge. Like, it's not just slapstick all the time. There's a lot of meaning behind it, too. And I think that's something that Telltale is really perfectly positioned to do. You know, the lead writer, Mike Stemley, he was the writer of the original Sam & Max back in the LucasArts days. So, as Kevin said, we've done a lot of comedy before, and this isn't new ground. It's actually really nice to just be like, and a gag goes here. Like, to say the word gag again after doing Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us. But we're definitely trying to stay within the sort of expected level of humor of the Borderlands games, and sort of bring a Telltale angle to it as well. So it's not just copy and paste. I mean, we're huge fans of obviously Anthony's writing and Borderlands and Borderlands 2. So we're definitely not going to drift too far away from that, but also we as Telltale want to tell tales of our own, I guess, is is on our own as well.
And you guys have announced this game, but we've never really heard any details of this game. So can I ask you, I mean, are you guys allowed to say, like, is it set before or after Borderlands 2? Like, where does it fit into, like, the Borderlands universe?
Yeah, we can talk about that. So this is definitely set on Pandora. It's set after the events of Borderlands 2 and all of its DLC. So it fits into the world basically as the story of Borderlands 2 and all of its DLC sort of wrap up.
But it's not Borderlands 3.
No, this is not Borderlands 2 and it's not Borderlands 3. It fits into it is going to be canon. What happens in Tales from the Borderlands is canon to the sort of Borderlands mythos and Borderlands universe. But it isn't like a prequel. It isn't like it's nothing else. It's basically after Borderlands 2 has ended, all the story stuff has ended in Borderlands 2, and the sort of world is sort of changing and reorganizing itself. That's when our story takes place.
And you've never publicly talked about any of this stuff at all.
No, really the only thing we've done is make a really cool trailer for the VGX, and that was pretty much it.
So this is sort of going to be like the Mos Eisley thing of the Borderlands universe, huh? You're going to blow some kids' minds the way your mind was blown.
That's certainly the hope, yeah. I mean, I think the thing that's really cool about Mos Eisley, or any sort of, expanded universe stuff of that type, is let's tell a story that takes place in this universe that's not specifically about the world savers. It's not about the cool badasses doing the cool badass things. It's about just schmoes, just trying to get by, and that makes the world feel much more
Thanks
real.
A lot.
What?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's just people that don't fucking matter. It's
Those idiots.
bunch of dumbasses. But really cool schmoes. Don't get me wrong.
Nice, good save.
But you play Borderlands 2 and you're playing as Salvador or whatever. Nothing bad's really going to happen to Salvador necessarily. When you're playing somebody that maybe isn't a Vault Hunter who has a bazillion skills and can wield all the guns in the world, I think there's more dramatic tension there. Mm-hmm. So I think weirdly not even weirdly, because it's a Telltale game and you have choice, there's just so much more freedom for you guys and for us helping you obviously to do stuff that we just couldn't get away with in a Borderlands game.
We used to always joke about that, like if you lived in Gotham but like worked at a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Batman keeps slamming into our restaurant, breaking all of our windows. I guess I got to fix that again. But I like that idea of kind of exploring characters that aren't like the heroes and the badasses, because they all have stories too. Right. They all have tales.
You could say.
From the Borderlands.
One point. No, I mean, it's totally true, and there are so many people that live on Pandora and are affected by, what Pandora is, as Matt said, it's a really nasty place to live, and there are other people who can't defend themselves, like Vault Hunters can, by just pulling out a gun and just murdering a bunch of people. There are people who have to live on that world and have families and have friends and have things that they care about other than the things that you care about in Borderlands 2 that are really important to them. And I think there's tons of space for those stories.
Oh, I was going to say, what seemed to be very important to the characters in Borderlands was greed. That seemed to be a big part of... Oh, there you go. I just thought of that, and you guys, they already had made a thing for it. Wow. You guys are good. Whereas a lot of the Telltale games, it seems like there's a lot of moral choices to be made. Am I going to do good? Am I going to do bad? Borderlands, the characters seem to be more sort of greed-oriented. How does that sort of play out?
I mean, the way that I sort of looked at it was that in Pandora, you're either greedy or you die. Like, there's no way to just be like, here, eat all my food. You just can't live like that. It's like any sort of like weird post-apocalyptic wasteland story. It's just sort of like, I have to keep myself alive. Sorry, everyone else. So it's definitely, I mean, when we started talking about this license, I sat down and I figured out, I said, well, what's the thing that motivates the players of Borderlands? And it's greed, and it's sort of picking up the coolest stuff, and you're sort of vacuuming in stuff without really considering what that means. And I thought it would be interesting to just see what it meant. And there's no way to not be greedy. It's just sort of, how will you be greedy? Will you kind of backstab this guy? Will you backstab this guy and steal his stuff? What will that mean? Greed always has consequences and makes things complicated, but you can't just opt out. There's no opting out of that treadmill on Pandora. It's like we watched Treasure of Sierra Madre. Has anybody seen that movie? So in that movie, it's just
No.
who would watch that movie?
No one has
Not a
seen
lot
But
of
in
film
that-
fans at South by Southwest.
Right, yeah. But that movie is just 3 guys go up to a mountain, make a bunch of dig up a bunch of gold, and then it just sort of like affects them in really different ways. And one guy just goes off the cliff and off the deep end. One guy is just sort of like, well, money's cool, but I don't want to hurt anybody. And one guy, it's really interesting to just see how greed affects people and what it does to them. It doesn't affect everyone the same way. And greed isn't good and greed isn't bad. It just is. Mm-hmm. And how it affects people is what's interesting. So that's kind of where we went with it, based on the world that these guys had already sort of set up.
Well, and to be fair, in Borderlands, the things that I'm finding, the loot I'm finding in Skag poop, it's not hurting anyone. That greed is not hurting anyone, is it?
Technically, it's skag vomit.
Oh, is that right? It's not skag poop?
They don't have an anus. They digest
Skags
and
don't have
spit
an
Heard here
anus?
first.
Now I've heard everything.
South by
There's,
Southwest
there's an
exclusive.
egg-eating snake that swallows the egg, crushes the egg, and then spits the egg shell back out.
Wait, they don't have buttholes?
Well,
They've never said this. We've never discussed whether or not skags have buttholes.
we put a lot of effort into understanding the physiology of all of our creatures. We don't always
This is
discuss
passion.
it, but we understand it.
Wow.
I've been rifling through Skag vomit. Somehow rifling through poop was okay with me. But now that I know it's vomit, I'm disgusted.
That was the big twist ending of Borderlands 2, is that all the poop was actually vomit the whole time. Directed by M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, that explains the color a little bit, because I was like, this skag should go to the doctor. Well, except it's dead, so shouldn't. But the greed thing is interesting, because that is how, we would play the game together, and I would never get rid of any weapons at all. I would put them in my lockers, and that sort of started bleeding into my real life. I would go to Burger King and get 3 Whoppers. I'm like, because I'll need these at some point.
Yep, yeah. It just makes you into hoarders like the game.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of turned us against each other too, which is always great when you're married and playing video games together. But I also think that's true, because in the Walking Dead games, the greed was not a factor so much. Some of the characters, yes, but it was more survival. Who do you care about? And feeling judged by a lot of other characters in those games. I don't feel like feeling judged anymore. Am I going to feel judged when I play Tales from the Borderlands?
Hopefully not. Yeah, the whole greed thing it's not a morality game, kind of like Walking Dead sort of is a little bit. Who would you save versus let die is kind of a really heavy thing. But who do you backstab and kind of pickpocket versus kind of cheat and swindle out of something else is more of what's happening in Tales of the Borderlands. And that generally has pretty funny and unexpected consequences, but you're rewarded for trying to lie, cheat, steal, step on someone's back.
Just like real life.
Yeah.
Mostly
There's
like
never a
real life.
downside ever for doing that. The way I kind of look at it is that Walking Dead sort of presents you with 2 choices, and you don't want either of them.
Yeah.
And Tales from the Borderlands will present you with 2 choices, and you're just upset you can't have both. So you have to pick one, but in Walking Dead you don't want any of them. In Tales from the Borderlands you only can get one of the 2 things that are hilarious and funny. So
Now, you guys call this 2 sides to every story? What does this mean? Tell us about this.
Okay, so 2 sides to every story. Well, if you watched the trailer, the VGS trailer, there were sort of 2 people. There was a guy and a girl. And in Tales from the Borderlands, you're actually going to play 2 protagonists. We're going to tell a story from 2 perspectives. And the way that we're setting this up is that the story is sort of their interpretation of events. So you'll get one side of the story from one character, another side of the story from another character. And they're both kind of lying jerks because it's Borderlands. So the truth is kind of in between, kind of like Rashomon, if anyone's seen Rashomon. It's
Really
kind
dropping
of,
some serious movie stuff here today.
we love movies at Telltale. So it's similar, it's sort of like unreliable narrator kind of storytelling.
There's also a great X-Files episode that has that. I believe it's called Bad Blood. Does anyone know?
Is that season 2?
Do people not watch X-Files anymore?
I just
I know
started
there's-
watching it again, actually. So
It's
I'm
great,
I'm going
right?
to look out for that episode. Yeah.
All right, let's just talk about X-Files now. So how did you think of this idea, like this sort of two sides to every sort of, what was the inspiration?
We sat down and really tried to figure out what, I mean, Kevin can talk to this a little bit too. Like we sat down and tried to figure out what mattered to Borderlands fans, and sitting down and having like two different perspectives on, like, multiple perspectives on the game, like with your friends playing with your friends, like I'm playing Salvador, you're playing Maya, getting two sort of versions of events. Like I remember I landed the killing blow on that giant monster. No, I totally did that. No, you picked up that loot. I thought I picked up that loot. And this sort of version is the Telltale sort of like extrapolation of that idea.
It's kind of like bragging rights. And each of our two characters, one's named Reese, one's named Fiona, and they're both kind of telling fish stories of the whole time, where their version of events are kind of suspect as to, you know, like, did things really go down that way? And the game doesn't necessarily present the truth. And the true story of what's going on lies somewhere in the middle, but you never really play what actually happened. You're playing these kind of big fish version, another movie reference, big fish version of the
Up to
game.
3.
Yeah. And it sounds like that the truth is not even what's important. At
Exactly.
This, yeah, nobody cares about the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, making up the story,
Yeah.
like making up the lie, is a really entertaining part of the game.
And so do you switch back and forth between the two characters? You just keep going back
It's
and forth?
the specific details of how you do that. I don't think we're going to talk about quite yet, but it's going to be done in sort of a Telltale way. Like we sort of tailor a specific narrative to the way that a game gets played, and we sort of want to keep somewhat control over the way that you experience those stories. It's a lot harder to do setup and payoff when you can just sort of like left trigger, right trigger, swap around all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give more details on that soon.
And who are these two characters?
Yeah, let's talk about these characters.
Here, the players. Here they are. If you've seen them in our trailer, here they
These
are.
human beings are very attractive. These are very attractive people. Tell us about these two human beings we're looking
Sure.
at.
Well, let's start with the guy we never put his name out before. His name's Reese. Tumblr calls him Sexy Cyborg Guy.
I would
now he has a
agree.
name. He really has a name now.
Wait, isn't he an android? I thought he was an android.
He is not an android.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He has feelings and emotions.
I think androids can have feelings and emotions. Have you?
Jesus, check your privilege, dude.
Yeah. Have you not seen Blade Runner?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't watch movies.
Well done.
Good answer.
So as you can probably tell, Reese works for Hyperion. He is not Handsome Jack, for people who are wondering if he's Handsome Jack.
So this was a big question. Let's get this
Yeah.
clarified now. You can see in the hair, maybe in the hair, he's got some handsome Jack in the hair, but not at all.
You know, there's actually not a lot of tall, statuesque white people in Borderlands 2. So, like, anytime you have two of them together, I mean, like, so he definitely, he's definitely part of Hyperion, and Handsome Jack has an effect on him. Their specific relationship we're not going to kind of touch on quite yet, but Handsome Jack has definitely affected the people that work at Hyperion, and Reese is a Hyperion man through and through. So there's a reason he looks the way he looks. He definitely looks up to the sort of example that Handsome Jack has set, but he isn't like his secret nephew or like secret love child with anybody.
Okay, so he is not handsome Jack. He's not a young handsome Jack.
No.
It's like having the Rachel. You know, everybody had the Rachel in the '90s. That hair. He's just got similar hair.
Was
'cause
everybody
that's
like,
the
"Are you
style."
Rachel?"
Yeah. And I also like the skinny tie. Skinny tie works for me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's a pretty good skinny tie.
Yeah.
And is he a Vault Hunter?
He is not a Vault Hunter, and neither is the girl whose name's Fiona, which we can get to. So Fiona is our female character. She is a con woman, a con artist, flim-flam, kind of snake oil salesman. Neither of the two characters are Vault Hunters. They have sort of interesting and exciting dealings on Pandora. They're there for very specific purposes, but they're not, let's go find a vault. They're not, like that's something that Vault Hunters do. Then they have their own sort of agendas that they're trying to fulfill as well.
What can you tell us about what their agendas are? Like, what's
Not
their
quite
backstory?
yet. I don't want to go into that quite yet. We have a ways to go before the game comes out. But there's definitely some really exciting stuff that they get into. that sort of sets them on the path to go after stuff that they might not be quite ready for. Like maybe a level 1 Vault Hunter might go after, but not a level 0 Vault Hunter would go after.
Okay.
And so we sort of consider their arc sort of, their level 0, if you want to call it that, like arc.
And so they know each other.
They will.
Interesting. And when you're
What do you mean they will?
They will meet each other and know each other in Tales from the Borderlands. They may
Are-
not start out knowing each
are
other.
they going to have sex?
Choices matter. No,
With each other?
Yeah, with each other.
maybe not with each other. Maybe
Choices
with other
always
people.
matter
General?
when it comes
Actually,
to
now
sex.
that they've asked that, I'm curious too.
Wouldn't you know this, Anthony?
I just
Do you
realized
really
that
want us to
never occurred
spoil
me.
like mid-season cool stuff? No, let's.
So
Everyone's
Anthony,
like, yeah.
That's one heck of a button mash.
That's like God of War. That's what you do in God
I was
of
just
War.
thinking that too.
Yeah.
Did you get a
There's
game
a lot
on
of
the
like
screen when
circling
you fail
around.
that?
It's
Or does it just say Fiona will remember that?
We'll try not to remember that.
Fiona will tell her friends about this. She might write a blog about it later. We're not sure. So do we have a sense of Fiona's background at all? We know she's kind of a scam artist, but do we?
She is one of those people in Pandora who's just had to do what they need to do to survive. Like there's definitely a vibe of, look, I have to stay alive in this universe where Vault Hunters come in and just like a tornado just rip up towns and steal people's stuff, and they're just like the weather. They just do what they do. But that's not how I solve my problems. Is anyone worried? There will be shooting guns in this game, just in a Telltale sort of way. So it's not just like, use your harsh language. It's definitely, there's going to be some action, there's going to be some cool stuff you're doing. And she just has, she's trying to sort of do this con. She's just basically, anytime she can make some money, she will try and make some money just to keep going. She's sort of really not, she's kind of out on her luck. And the thing about being a con artist is that eventually you run out of places where people don't recognize you, which is obviously we alluded to in the trailer. Like there are wanted posters, people sort of recognize her. Her sort of place that she can ply her trade are really shrinking, and the people who are willing to work with her are really shrinking. So you can't be a con artist forever and ever because you run out of people who don't know who you are. So that's kind of the state where she is when the game sort of starts.
Yeah, because people just like don't trust the prettiest woman in Pandora.
Exactly. Well, there's a lot of pretty women in Pandora.
They really are. They really are. And when you're writing characters like this, Anthony, how do you approach characters like this?
Well, Fiona is the creation entirely of Telltale, but I love her. Like she's got some of my favorite character design of a lot of characters I've seen. But
What are you referring to, Anthony?
what?
What are you referring to specifically?
Like I like the fact that she's this cool female character, and find the cleavage on her. It's real hard.
It is
Like,
hard. She's very dressed. I
yeah,
will
she's
say.
a well
very
dressed. She like fits the part of somebody who's coming in and trying to pretend like they're hot shit, and they're something that's really important, and can convince somebody of that without like just like unzipping her shirt, which is the general way that female characters in video games kind of get what they want. But yeah, generally when it comes to writing characters, at least for Borderlands, I try to like find a hook for them. So for Tiny Tina, it was insane little girl bomber. For Handsome Jack, it was like evil Nathan Fillion. And then try to find something that justifies how wacky they are. So for Mr. Torg, for example, like he's a wacky guy. He's basically Macho Man Randy Savage, but I tried to make him really lonely and sad, just like me in high
Like
school.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, like Macho Man Randy Savage.
Art imitates life.
But yeah, it's sort of like what I was saying before. Borderlands is a franchise in a universe where things can really quickly get so out of hand that you can't take them seriously and don't care about them anymore. So we try to balance anytime anybody gets too wacky or too funny, giving an equal amount of darkness or sadness to them that tries to ground them a little bit. Because it's like every comedy needs a straight man, and we hope that the sad stuff or the dark stuff is the straight man to the wacky shit that is a dude talking about meat bicycles.
Did you say meat bicycles?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So what I really liked about The Wolf Among Us is like sort of the different way that you guys took action, like the way, you sort of move the cursor to the thing and hit the button, and it got really frenetic. I think I've explained it exactly perfectly.
That's actually how I design it.
Yep,
It's just,
that's what
just,
it's-
you push a button and a thing happens in a thing. And
But I liked that the action was really, really dynamic. Is there a lot of dynamic action in this game as well?
Definitely.
Yeah. It's a Borderlands game. There's got to be crazy stuff going on. And one of the things we've always, I'm glad that people recognize it in Wolf, because figuring out how to do action and storytelling at the same time has been tricky to do, and without reverting to like traditional run-around video game. Like we want to keep it very cinematic and have action sequences tell stories. We got better between Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us, and I think we're going to get better again as we move into Borderlands, because you got to have crazy over-the-top action scenes, or it's not a Borderlands game.
Right.
And a million guns. You have to have a lot of guns.
There'll probably
Totally.
be some guns.
Definitely. There'll definitely be. And I think that, our director, Nick Herman, for episode 1, he's very adamant that, like, we just don't do an action scene just because an action scene goes here. Like, let's make sure that there's a moment here. There's something, like, character-based here. It's not just action for action's sake. Like, that's definitely in Wolf, especially the opening fight with the woodsman. That's so, like, has so much context wrapped around it that you know exactly how to sort of feel there. And I think that that's something that we're learning as a company, just like make sure that it's not just action because people demand buttons to push. Like you really want to feel that action. So.
It's a very intense fight.
Do you run into characters from the other Borderlands games, or is this something that you can't
There will
say?
be. There will definitely be some Borderlands characters. Yeah, absolutely
Which
will be.
ones?
Your least favorite ones.
Yeah.
Only the ones you don't like.
All those weird NPCs that you don't know the names of in
We
Sanctuary.
check your forum post to see if you didn't like Tiny Tina, and then we put her only in the game.
Yeah, it's actually just 17 Tiny Tinas. We're
I'd
not
take
quite
that.
ready to mention that, but we're definitely going to have some loved Borderlands characters in. We wanted them to feel like a part of the game. One of the things I said earlier is I don't want this to feel like you're Don Knotts on a very special episode of Scooby-Doo, where you're just like, oh, I'm just sort of in their story. Like, it's not my story. I'm just following their, like, this is all the Borderlands characters, and I'm sort of hanging out with them, but I'm not really like a regular part of that story, which is how Don Knotts, I assume, feels all the time.
Most likely.
I bet most of these guys don't know who Don Knotts is. They didn't know
Come on.
X-Files.
That's true.
Yeah,
Well,
Don
okay.
Knotts.
your hand if you
Some
know
people get it.
Don
Where are my Don Knotts fans
You're
at?
all
Where are my
dating
Don Knotts
yourselves
fans
really
at?
badly right now.
That was beautiful. That was gorgeous to see.
Do you want to see a screenshot of an action sequence?
That's what I'm super excited
Yeah, let's see something.
This is it. This is our very first.
This is the first ever screenshot
This is the very
from
first
Tales from the
screenshot.
Borderlands.
What's going on here? Talk to us.
Yeah.
So, as you might be able to see here, our pal Reese is controlling a loader bot and grabbing a psycho by the neck and being a jerk. So there's definitely action sequences. There's definitely cool stuff. Reese has special abilities. He's got a robotic arm for a very specific reason, which is that he likes to hack stuff. He's a hacker. He likes computers, and he's a big old nerd.
Yeah, he looks like all the nerds I know.
Yeah, he's a Borderlands nerd.
It's your average
And
gorgeous
so,
nerd.
we're going to give you, he hacks into machines and computers and stuff. And that's not the only thing. It's not like every time there's an action sequence, you're going to hack into something. But that's his, like, signature thing that he does. So there's going to be a lot of crazy action sequences where you do all sorts of crazy stuff. And this is the first screenshot, so there you go.
So his abilities are he can sort of hack and control. And what's so his fighting style seems to be more sort of hacking based. And what
It
about
will be sort of. I think that, he's going to get physical. Get physical. He definitely doesn't just hack and then he just hides. There's going to be a lot of bandits in your face and bad guys trying to threaten you, and it's definitely not going to be I can stand behind this shield and the little robot takes all the damage and I don't have to worry about dying. It's going to be in your face. The sort of like standard Telltale style of guy gets in your face and tries to punch you, and it's not going to be like I can stay safe. But Fiona is going to be very similar. She can get her hands dirty. She lives on Pandora. You can't live in Pandora without knowing how to take care of yourself. The funny thing about Reese is that he's kind of an office boy. Like you can see, he's well dressed. He hangs out like on the Hyperion H. So he's kind of like doesn't really get his hands dirty that often. So he's going to kind of be a little bit more of a fish out of water. But he's going to find his feet relatively quickly. And same thing with Fiona, is that she's a little bit more rough and tumble, as you can see from the art, that she knows how to take care of herself. In a world where you're scamming people, getting a bruised lip happens pretty frequently, so it's not going to just be, a hands-off sort of thing. You're going to definitely punch some guys in the face. Confirmed.
And it's nice to see the psychos. I missed seeing psychos.
There'll be a lot of those guys.
So can you guys tell us like how many episodes are we looking at? When is it coming out?
It'll be coming out this year, and it'll be a fairly typical Telltale series, like you've seen before. And but we'll be announcing more specifics of it a little closer to the launch date. Those are familiar with Telltale. We announce dates very close to when the actual street
Earlier
date of
that
things
day.
is going to be. Yeah, like about 20 minutes beforehand, we'll let you know. But we're not ready to announce the release.
But it is
date
this
yet.
year.
It'll definitely be this year.
And we don't know how many episodes yet.
We're almost ready to talk about how many episodes.
Okay, great. Should we take some questions from the audience? Do you guys have any? Yes, lady back there.
I think they're gonna bring
and then
mics
I'll come to
around,
you.
hopefully.
Yeah, you.
Mike, is there a mic coming?
Oh,
You have
There
to
we go. We got
yell
mics.
really loud.
No, we got this.
there's so many mics coming.
I loved Borderlands 2, played it almost every weekend for like a year. And I'm really excited for this game, but my question was, I understand that the characters need to have darkness and there needs to be that sadness, but why did you have to kill Bloodwing? I cried.
I hope everybody
I
knows
know.
that.
You know what? I was going to ask that too. Why did you have to do that? You're a monster.
I actually did a talk at a grade school, and a 5th grade girl asked that same question with the same tone of voice.
Almost crying. Almost crying.
And what I told her is what I'll tell you. Why are you playing this game? You're too young. Don't
just
your
tell
parents
them-
know this is M-rated?
Yeah, people die, and kids should learn that lesson early.
Life sucks.
The legit reason is we wanted you to feel bad.
That's legit?
We,
That's
want,
a
we
legit-
wanted Handsome Jack's arc as the enemy, because Handsome Jack was the whole point of that game, was go find Handsome Jack and kill him. We wanted for the first half for you to think that this guy's kind of funny and I could stand to listen to what he has to say. I can deal with this dude. And then at the halfway point, the moment he kills Bloodwing, we wanted to go, never mind, fuck that guy. I'm going to do everything I have to kill him.
Yeah,
I'm
that
going to
should
heap
get
praise
enough
on
And it worked,
Anthony for a second
clearly.
real quick. Handsome Jack's arc with the players is one of the coolest that I ever saw in a game, because you do like him, and when he starts to hate you, you start to hate him, and it becomes an intimate and personal thing. You really get the sense that he hates you directly, and you really start to hate him directly. That's a really hard thing to do in a video game. It was really nice for that. We also want to remind the player, when you're surrounded by all these characters who've had these tragic, terrible lives, you can say that. You can easily say, hey, look how tragic this place is. But if you don't actually show the player and let them feel it, then it's really hard for you to believe it. So sooner or later, someone's got to die.
It is true that when we started, I was like, oh, this Handsome Jack, he's so clever and funny. I'm shocked. These people are just overreacting. But then, yeah, instantly the hatred begins to flow.
Yay!
Yeah.
I love these guys.
Who? Oh, go ahead.
Ben, let's skip.
So is this going to be released on the next generation systems as well as the current, Xbox One, PS4, as well as Xbox 360? And follow up, are you going to, for Telltale, are you guys going to re-release any of your stuff from the Xbox Live Arcade onto Xbox One?
Well, we're really not talking about any platforms right now, so I can't answer that. But
Any other
Sorry.
questions?
sorry.
Boom.
Coming to the
Couple
TI
people
85.
here. Oh, any of these folks?
As for Telltale, super excited for Borderlands. But what can you tell us about the Game of Thrones project?
About what?
Game of Thrones.
What's Game
project?
of Thrones?
I got this.
I don't know
I got
what that
this.
is.
I know nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. I asked, they won't tell me, and if they won't tell me, they're certainly not going to tell you.
It's going to be awesome.
That sounds like a really good idea. No, we're not saying anything about Game of Thrones.
Let's do non-Game of Thrones based questions.
Game of Trains.
Yeah, that person.
So you showed us a little bit about what Reese could do and what his special ability is and everything. Pardon me, special ability. But you didn't really say anything about the female character. What does she do? What's her favorite weapon?
Sure, totally. We can talk about that. So Fiona, as you can probably surmise, is a grifter and a con artist, and she uses her words to confuse and sort of like make people go, oh, it seems to make sense. So we're sort of just calling it, we're calling it fast talk, where you just sort of are able to tell a ridiculous story and just steamroll the other person and just make them go, yeah, that seems to make sense, and then just sort of bounce before they realize that, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense at all. So she gets into situations and she takes a deep breath and goes, okay, let me tell the truth. And she's going, And everyone goes, yeah, okay, cool. You know, I had a similar situation in my life. And she's like, oh, great, I gotta go. So she definitely uses her like ability to bamboozle the local rubes to get kind of where she wants.
So she's a liar.
They're all liars.
They're all liars.
She's extra good at it.
Or whoever is easiest for you to get to.
So there are two characters that seem playable. Are they playable at the same time? Is there co-op of any kind? Because that's my favorite.
No.
Sad.
I don't know how co-op would work in a game like the kinds of games that you guys make. I can't even see in my head how that would.
It's a tough challenge for sure.
Yeah, it's something we think a lot about, and but we haven't dived into how co-op would work in a Telltale game yet.
Just, yeah.
There we go. Blue jacket. Let's get it.
Hey,
Hello.
one character that we haven't talked about at all today is Claptrap. How big a role will Claptrap, if any, play in this Borderlands game? I know, one more follow-up question. Would you consider making a Kumail character equipped with a chicken sandwich?
Yeah, would you guys consider doing that? Let's talk
we
about
would
it in front of
consider-
100 witnesses right now. So you can't go back. I know you know how to write liars. Can you?
Considering isn't necessarily. Here's where fast talk starts. So considering isn't actually like legally binding, right? So we can say we'll consider it.
That high-pitched voice, that was pretty good.
The higher it goes, the less you believe it. I don't want to say specifically what character is going to be in the game, but it wouldn't be a Borderlands game without Claptrap. That's all I'll say.
I need a Claptrap
He's
spin-off.
not at the
This is a
inventory
Borderlands.
playing poker anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's in Poker Night at the Inventory too. You should play that. It's good.
Microphones. There you go.
Yes.
Hair,
hi.
glasses.
Yes. I just want to ask, I know you guys had talked about it before, that's where you kind of got your start. Is there any hope that we might see another Sam & Max game in the near future?
Kevin.
We love Sam and Max. We have a great relationship with Steve. All the usual stuff around that, but we don't have anything to announce about Sam and Max right now. The Poker Night, has had Sam and Max in it. We very much love Sam and Max. We have not forgotten at all about Sam and Max, but we don't have anything to say about it right now.
That was like a Bill Clinton kind of answer.
Depends on what the meaning of the word Max is.
Another reference these kids aren't going to get.
There's a gentleman right behind you. You could just hand it to him.
These 90s references have just been awesome. I just want to say.
A lot of 90s references.
Thanks. There's a question for Harrison. I know that Telltale Games' strength relies a lot in the choices that people make. When building a game and an interactive story, how do you decide the pivotal choices that a character has to make? Like, where along the line is like, this is an important choice that a character really needs to think about before they make it?
That is literally a question we could just sit in like workshop for like an entire day. There's no like simple answer to that question. I said this at the other panel we did this morning, but like game design is partially just behavioral psychology and sort of learning to understand human beings and why we like certain things and hate certain things and want certain things and don't want other things. So there's no like formula. There's never like every 15 minutes we need to have an interesting choice. We just write a great story and put characters in really crazy situations and say, if I was here and like Fiona's a real person and I was Fiona, what would I do? And a lot of times we just argue, and if like two people in the room just like, there's no way you would ever do that. Are you crazy? I would never do that. And the other person says the exact opposite. We're like, write that down. That is a great choice. But there's no secret to it. There's no like mathematic formula that Telltale like checks on the board. It's just, as a player and as a person, like what would I be doing in this really difficult situation? And we just keep trying to give those to the player, and not like, even though we only record everything, but we only show 5 of them. or 4 or 5 at the end of the episode. Everything that you guys do is being tracked by the game and by Telltale, and we're sort of getting to know the player. And Kevin did a great talk on this morning. Like, we get to getting to know the player behind the screen. That's how we make our games work. So I don't know if that's kind of a runaround. I don't mean it to be. I hope I answered the question. Like, there's no real secret to it. We just try and come up with a story that we love and put the characters in difficult situations, and then know what would Reese do here? Like, what would he, this guy, knowing what I know about this guy, would he flip a dude off? Would he like punch him in the face? Like, would he shoot him in the face? Like, what would he do? And then we just try and make both choices interesting. We don't want to like do interesting thing and nothing. Like, we try and make 2 interesting choices that you don't know which one you want because you want to do both of them, and then you rewind and do it again.
I always really appreciate the stats at the end of every episode of like seeing what other people that have played the game, what choices they made. That I think that's such an amazing, and it is behavioral psychology. It's what people choose to do in these situations. Is there anything you've ever come up with that's too that you're like, no, we can't do this?
I bet
No.
we have. I have, and then didn't tell Kevin.
It makes for definitely makes for some interesting brainstorming sessions. And then you kind of got to drive home at the end of the day and sit in your car for about 15 minutes before you can go into your house and
take a shame shower.
There's nothing off limits. And with Borderlands, it's been nice to get back to comedy and outrageousness and just the most ridiculous, funny thing or bizarre twist you can put on it, because we've been mired in the horrible things that happened to Lee and Clementine. And like a lot of people know, Gary Whitta worked on, and I can tell you from personal experience, Gary Whitta is sick. There is something wrong with that man. But no, we don't really think anything's off limits as long as we're telling a great story. We tend to go there.
It seems to me the way you guys in Walking Dead made decisions was whatever you choose, you're going to feel is the wrong thing to do. Like, whatever I chose, I felt bad about. And that, it just kept me, like, really, like, into the game, wanting to do the right thing.
Yeah, like I like to think Walking Dead's just a big series of, like, lose-lose situations. And
I think we have time for 2 more questions. Let's go with the guy on the end there. I was
Hello.
like, you in the hoodie and the glasses. Never mind, that's everyone.
Not wearing a
Also,
hoodie.
also it's a
Not
blazer,
wearing
but
I can't tell from here, I apologize.
yeah, I was just wondering if you guys could talk about like characterizing the way that your collaboration is working. Like, are you guys like sharing assets? Because I mean, one of the things that was fun about when I had my like Star Wars cards when I was a kid, right, is like someone found like a pre-production sketch from a prop that's in the background of a scene somewhere and like wrote a whole story about it. But like that requires really deep collaboration. And then also like, how does it go in the day-to-day? Like, do you bounce ideas off of each other? Do you guys actually like write stuff for each other? Do you like share original assets? Like, how does it work?
We are terribly protective of Borderlands. And we have many people who've been interested in working with us. Frankly, we love these guys and we love their work. We're giving them the assets they request just as quick as we can. Anthony and I have flown out there, and several others of us have flown out several times, and they come out to visit us. We go over this story. It's their baby. When this thing comes out and you think it's great, this is them. We're doing everything we can to support it. We want to keep it in canon, so we want to make sure that what happens or doesn't happen is something that has true weight and value. The collaboration is hopefully going fairly smoothly.
It's definitely been really great. I mean, these guys come over, or we go visit them, as Matt said, and we just say, "What do you think of this?" And just get a feeling for like, does that feel like Borderlands? Does it feel like something that could happen in this world? Does it feel like something that characters that exist in that world would do, would say, reactions? Like, do these things feel like they have a place here? And it's been really, these guys have been great. And sometimes it's just an email or just like a quick, like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, I'm not sure about this. Or it's like a long sort of like, a longer, long form sort of process, just walking through the season or whatever. But it's been really, really productive, and we work well together. So
it's been really enjoyable also to talk about what the world's like after the events of Borderlands 2, because when you get through it, it's actually pretty huge series of events that have changed the landscape of the planet, and we can get into the character of that. We can get into, so what's up with Hyperion now? Well, we have a character from Hyperion. What's that mean when someone from Hyperion comes to Pandora after Borderlands 2? it's not the same thing. It's great to have that character experiencing the new reality at the same time that the player experiences the new reality, and it's also great to understand that your actions in Borderlands 2 had consequences. So we're really enjoying being able to present that on a much more intimate and direct and storytelling level, which is the thing that we can do in a Telltale game. We have some really cool story and some ideas, but we're limited inherently because we're making a first-person shooter. It's got to be fun action all the time. We can't really get into deeper conversations or what life is like on a day-to-day basis. And it's really enjoyable for us to really get into what's the impact of these Vault Hunters on this planet, because they're like a force of nature. They're so powerful, and they've had such an impact on the world and the universe. So it's a really neat thing for us.
And you're just getting a hint of when Anthony was talking about the expanded Star Wars universe, and you see Matt's passion when he starts talking about it, the depth at which these guys know the Borderlands universe
And love the Borderlands
is
universe.
amazing, and barely the games themselves feel like the tip of the iceberg from what's going on in their heads. And being able to mine that and present it to you guys in a medium that kind of works outside of just pure first-person shooter is an amazing opportunity. It is an incredibly rich, very deeply defined world.
It's so awesome to see two companies that are both so passionate about what they're doing kind of working together. I don't know, it's been amazing just listening to you guys. And we have one last question, Dr. Orange Shirts.
Make it a good one.
So good.
If this game is
Lot of
set
pressure.
if this game's set after Borderlands 2, how is Handsome Jack in it? And will we see any Vault Hunters in the Tales from the Borderlands?
Those are really good questions.
Wow.
Oh, shit.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, how is Handsome Jack in it, you guys?
We're not ready to talk about Handsome Jack's involvement. You saw him in the trailer. That wasn't by accident, but we're not ready to talk about Handsome Jack.
So wait,
just yet.
Handsome
Jack,
Somebody's gonna have to explain.
he's
this to me,
dead.
man.
Spoilers. He
Dead
died.
is dead, man. Dead is dead.
And yes, you will see some Vault Hunters, for sure.
Definitely.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to thank all these guys for coming and talking to you guys. Tales from the Borderlands. Buy it when it comes out.
You'll find out 20 minutes before it does, right?